All right, today we are diving into a truly mind-bending idea, one that connects the super weird world of quantum physics with, well, our everyday lives. It's a concept that really makes you question what's real and what isn't. So let me just start with a question. What if the simple act of observation, a scientist looking through a microscope, or even you just people watching at a cafe, what if that doesn't just record reality, but actively changes it? It sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie, I know. But as we're about to see, it has some very real consequences. To see what I mean, picture this. It's the 1920s. A bunch of researchers are in a factory trying to figure out the best lighting to make workers more productive. So they turn the lights up, and yep, productivity goes up. Awesome. But then they dim the lights way down, and productivity goes up again. What on earth is going on here?
What they found was a massive productivity boost, sometimes up to 30%. And the crazy part? It had absolutely nothing to do with the lights. It was all because the workers knew they were being watched. The attention itself was the secret ingredient.
And that little story reveals a huge truth that we're going to unpack today. The act of watching can, and absolutely does, change the world. It's an idea that scales all the way up from the tiniest particles to our entire society.
So here's our game plan. First, we'll look at the quantum origins of this whole thing and see how it connects to people. Then we'll jump into some classic historical examples, see how it's playing out in modern society, and yeah, we'll have to look at the dark side of being watched. But we'll finish up with how you can reclaim your own reality in the middle of it all.
Okay, so let's start at the very beginning. I'm talking subatomic level, to really get a grip on how this strange connection between particles and people even came to be. You see, the term observer effect actually comes from quantum physics. You might have heard of the famous double-slit experiment. When nobody's looking, a particle, like an electron, acts like a wave of pure potential. It can go through both slits at the same time. But the second you try to measure it to see which slit it goes through, bam, it snaps into being a single particle in a single place. The observation itself forces it to pick a side.
But here's the absolute key difference, and you gotta get this. In the quantum world, the effect is physical. A measuring tool literally bumps into the particle and changes it. In our world, the social observer effect is all in our heads. It's not a physical thing, it's our awareness, just knowing we're being watched, that makes us adapt and change our behavior.
So, how does this all play out in the real world? Well, history is basically a laboratory filled with incredible studies that show just how powerful this effect really is.
And this brings us right back to that factory in Chicago. The studies there ran for years, from 1924 to 1932, and they became so famous they were named the Hawthorne-effect. The researchers finally figured it out. The one thing they couldn't control was themselves. The workers felt special, they felt important, and that attention alone was enough to completely change how they worked. And here's the catch. This shows just how temporary the effect was. As soon as the researchers packed up their clipboards and left, those productivity gains just fell off. It wasn't about a permanent change in skill. It was a temporary reaction to being under the microscope.
But wait, it gets even deeper. It's not just about being watched, it's also about what the watcher expects from you. This is called the Pygmalion-effect, where one person's belief about another can actually become a self-fulfilling prophecy.
This is just wild. In a famous study from the 60s, researchers told teachers that a few randomly chosen students were late bloomers who were about to have an intellectual growth spurt. And guess what happened? Those kids' IQ scores shot up, 10 to 15 points higher than their classmates. The teacher's belief, which came through in little things like more encouragement and eye contact, literally made those students smarter. Okay, so this stuff happens in controlled studies. Fine. But what about out here, in the real, messy world we all live in? Well, once you start looking, you realize the observer effect is everywhere. It's shaping our media, our economy, and even how we think about ourselves. We could talk about this all day, but let's just focus on three huge areas. How the media doesn't just report the news but actually shapes it, the constant performance we're all doing on social media, and how just predicting something about the economy can make it come true.
Take pre-election polls, for example. They aren't just a snapshot in time. The very act of publishing them can swing an election by 5 to 10%. People see a candidate is ahead and they want to back a winner, so they jump on the bandwagon. The poll itself can actually change the outcome. And then you've got social media. It's like we're all living in this digital fishbowl, feeling like we're being watched by an invisible audience. And that pressure makes us curate our lives, right? Studies show we're constantly presenting this polished, better version of ourselves. And over time, that performance actually starts to shape who we really are. Which brings us to the more unsettling part of this story. Because while being seen can feel good and motivate us, being watched all the time has a real dark side, a chilling effect on our freedom and our ability to just be ourselves.
Think about security cameras. On one hand, sure, they reduce theft by about 25% and keep things orderly. But the trade-off is huge. Studies show a rise in public anxiety, a drop in creativity, and a big increase in self-censorship, because nobody wants to be the one who stands out or says the wrong thing.
And this chilling effect is crystal clear in the workplace. With more and more employee monitoring, the number of people willing to blow the whistle on unethical stuff has dropped by a shocking 30%. When people feel like Big Brother is always watching, they're way less likely to take a risk, even if it's for the right reasons. The gaze encourages conformity over courage.
So, I know this all might be sounding a little bleak, but look, being aware of the problem is the first step to fixing it. So let's talk about how you can actually navigate this world of constant observation and start reclaiming your own reality.
It really boils down to three things. First, think critically. When you see a poll or a news report, just remember that it might be creating the reality it claims to be reporting. Second, when you can, support ethical research and policies that try to reduce this kind of bias. And finally, and this one's the most personal, actively cultivate your authentic self. Find spaces, like journaling or a private hobby, where you aren't performing for anyone, just for you.
We started with this idea that observation changes things. It changes workers, it changes students, it changes voters, and it changes you. So I'll leave you with this. Now that you know, now that you're aware of the gaze and the countless ways you're being observed every single day, how will you choose to let it change